All right, welcome to Forward Future Live, the show by builders for builders. Today, I don't even remember today, September 12th, 2025, and we are back online, back at our normal location. Just flew back from San Francisco last night with the team. I am solo hosting today. My co-host Nick is sick because we just went too hard this week, too much going on, so he's not feeling great. But we do have an amazing show, a stacked guest list. On today's show, we will talk to Paul Klene, founder and CEO of BrowserBase, talking about how he's building the browser layer for AI agents and what the browser and the web might look like as agents continue to infiltrate all things the internet. Then one of my favorite guests, we're going to be talking to Dylan Patel, founder and CEO of Semi Analysis, about the global AI chip race, where the bottlenecks are, and a few other really interesting topics. And then finally, we're talking to Yohe Nakajima, general partner at Untapped Capital. We're going to be seeing what toys he's been playing with lately, being an AI native investor, and more. But first, as usual, let's get started. Some of the biggest stories of the week. Let me know, by the way, where you are watching from. So drop that in the chat. Let me know where you're watching from. It's always cool to see folks from all over the world tuning in to the show. All right. So we have Alex helping out in the background. Alex, I don't know if you can remove your tag on your screen share, but we'll get going. Okay. So first, Oracle and OpenAI sign a massive $300 billion cloud deal, one of the largest cloud computing contracts in history. We said this yesterday, but Oracle kind of came out of nowhere, or at least I didn't know that they were so deep in inference serving. So it's a little bit surprising. Earlier in the week, Oracle's stock popped 40%, making Larry Ellison once again the richest person in the world, surpassing Elon Musk. Yeah, when I hear Oracle, I think old school hardware and networking. I do not think about inference serving. I do not think about GPUs, but apparently they've been doing it and doing it well. So good on them. The thing is, OpenAI doesn't have $300 billion in cash. I'm sure they'll get it, and I'm sure this $300 billion deal is going to be over time. But let's see. Can you scroll down, Alex? Nope, we have to purchase it. Okay, so then right, Stargate Partner. If you remember, Oracle was up there with Sam Altman and the other folks. And yeah, that's it. All right, let's move on to the next story. MCP tools in ChatGPT developer mode. Okay, so we now have MCP tools added to ChatGPT, which is very nice. You basically get all the tooling that you would normally get as a developer, but now you get it in ChatGPT. So you'll be able to, in developer mode, developers can create connectors and use them in chat for write actions. So not just search and fetch, update Jira tickets, trigger Zapier workflows, or combine connectors for complex automations. Very interesting, especially when you think about Zapier, partner of the show, but also you essentially get like 8,000 different tools that you can plug in quite easily. And then this is all available in ChatGPT now, which is very, very nice. And Edwin, who you're actually seeing here, just a little quick aside, Edwin in this video doing the demo, who is DevRel at OpenAI, did announce he's leaving after a lot of years. So good luck to Edwin on whatever his next venture is. I think it's probably going to be taking a break. And then he'll probably get back into it because we can't help ourselves. Okay. Next, Microsoft is making significant investments in training its own AI models. So this was September 11th. This was yesterday during an employee-only town hall today. Microsoft AI CEO Mustafa Suleyman revealed the company's ambition to train even bigger in-house AI models. This is the way. We did see MAI, the voice, and MAI foundation models come out, I think, last week. These are really the first foundation models to come from OpenAI, and it makes a lot of sense as we're seeing the kind of, I wouldn't say breakup, but the relationship change between OpenAI and Microsoft, which we're going to get to in a moment. It just makes sense that they build their own models. They have the infrastructure with Azure. They are able to serve. They are able to train, and they have so much risk on just relying on others' platforms, specifically OpenAI. So this makes a lot of sense. They're going to continue significant investments. And what do I always say? More competition, the better for us as consumers of these models. And I'm very excited about that. All right. Next story. Speaking of, we have a joint statement. If you could pull that up. So this is a lot of, unfortunately, nothing, but we do have a joint statement from OpenAI and Microsoft. If you could scroll down, Alex. OpenAI and Microsoft have signed a non-binding memorandum of understanding, MOU. I've not actually heard of that terminology before. For the next phase of our relationship, we are actively working to finalize contractual terms in a definitive agreement. Together, we remain focused on delivering the best AI tools for everyone, grounded in our shared commitment to safety. And so what is this probably about? Because there were a whole bunch of words that really did not mean much in that little statement. What this probably means is that Microsoft is going to give the okay for OpenAI to convert to a for-profit. Now, whether they're actually going to be able to do that legally speaking, we'll see. They've threatened, they being OpenAI, leaving California, going to another state to potentially circumvent the restrictions in California in doing so. But again, we'll see. And this is just a kind of a hint as to what's to come with the relationship between Microsoft and OpenAI. And yeah, not a whole lot here. It's like, hey, just letting you know something's coming. All right, great. Let's move on to the next story. All right. So according to artificial analysis, Alibaba has released Qwen 3 Next ADB. By the way, Alibaba is on a tear lately. They've been releasing a lot of models. They released their biggest closed source model earlier in the week, I believe. But now we have an open weights hybrid reasoning model that achieves DeepSeek v3.1 level intelligence with only 3 billion active parameters. Now, that is not a 3 billion parameter model. That is 3 billion active parameters. It's probably a couple orders of magnitude greater than that, or not orders of magnitude, but it's multiple times greater than that. So let's see. Novel architecture, first model to introduce Alibaba Qwen's Qwen 3 Next Foundation models. High sparsity, 3.8% active parameter share. Interesting. Okay. Scores of 54 on the Artificial Analysis Intelligence Index, placing it alongside DeepSeek v3.1 reasoning. The non-reasoning variant scores of 45, in line with GPT OSS 20B and Llama Nemotron Super 49B v1.5 reasoning. So open weights model, I love to see it. Let's see what the price is, 50 cents and $6 per million input and output respectively. 50 cents and $2 for the non-reasoning variant. Yeah, so this is going to be a great model. Context window 256K. These run on a single H200 GPU. I'm sure we can get this running on local hardware as well. Okay. Let's do one more story. Let's do the K2 Think story, and then we'll bring our first guest on. The UAE dropped K2 Think, world's fastest open source AI reasoning model, and it's obliterating everything we thought we knew about AI scaling. Okay, a little bit of hypiness there. 32 billion parameters. That's it. Matching GPT-4 level reasoning while being 20x smaller. This, I think, shouldn't be surprising at this point. This is the curve of artificial intelligence. This is what we should be seeing. The models will get incredibly efficient, incredibly cheap, and still maintain quality. Obviously, the frontier will continue to progress, but we're going to see better open source, open weights models come down the pipe as the rest of the frontier continues to improve. All right. And with that, let's bring on our first guest, founder and CEO of BrowserBase, Paul Klene. Come on the show.
What's up, Matt?
Paul, good to see you.
Thanks for having me.
I'm excited to talk to you. So first, tell us who you are. Tell us what BrowserBase does.
Yeah, of course. Hi, everybody. I'm Paul. I'm the founder of BrowserBase. We power web browsing capabilities for AI agents and applications. So you think of us as like the browser tool for AI. If you're building an AI agent and it needs to go out and interact with the internet, maybe it's retrieving data from a website, or more commonly, actually interacting with that website, clicking buttons, filling in forms, uploading, downloading files. Sometimes to actually get the right value out of a website that might not have an MCP or an API, you need to use the thing that you and I use every day, which is a web browser. So at BrowserBase, we run many web browsers in the cloud. We're a cloud infrastructure service. We also have a very popular open source framework called Stagehand, which is the modern equivalent of Puppeteer, Playwright, or Selenium. It makes it really easy for people to add web browser capabilities right into their agents with natural language to control the browser. And then we also have a new product called Director.ai, which is like a web agent builder. So you can use a prompt and it will generate a repeatable automation script for any sort of web-based task you have to automate.
All right. And Paul, you have a lot of insight into and a lot of predictions into what the future of web browsing is going to look like. Obviously, it's changing quite a bit right now. Agents are starting to use the web on behalf of humans more and more. That is what you power. And so I want to talk a little bit about what you see as the future of human web interaction. What is the timeline for when the primary interaction layer between the human and the web is actually an agent?
Yeah, it's going to be some time. I think we're very early on in this AI revolution. And Andre Karpathy's Software 3.0 talk, he talks about how so much of the software was not built agentically. It was built with integrations, or it was really stuck inside the box of the software that it was built in. But now people are rebuilding software that can use tools, software that can actually do things in a more dynamic way. You might have software that will have capabilities that you didn't expect that your users would use it for, but thanks to the tools that you expose, you could prompt your taxes with TurboTax to also go and start a company and file in Delaware for you, because it has more native capabilities in there. So the long path to AI being the main user of the internet is still quite long, but we're seeing some of these kind of bleeding edge use cases from our customers where for certain categories in like compliance or in finance, or even in stuff like e-commerce or procurement, AI is able out there to go augment people who have to browse the web every single day to do kind of tedious, annoying tasks.
Yeah, and a thing I think about quite a bit is if I have an agent, or let me actually take a step back. So as the signal to noise ratio on the web, because of artificial intelligence, starts to get skewed in the negative direction, there's going to be a lot more noise than signal. It's going to be increasingly valuable for me to have an agent between myself and the internet, filtering everything to come. So two questions there. One, do you agree with that assessment? And do you think that we're going to run into some of the challenges that we had during social media, which is like echo chamber, amplification of fear and anger, or like, and then how important is this agent going to be in terms of what it's filtering?
I'd say the signal to noise ratio is already pretty bad on the internet. There's billions of websites out there, and the search problem, trying to discover that thing I saw months ago, the article I cared about, there's so much stuff happening already. We definitely need ways to make it better. But we also need agents to be good agents or good citizens of the internet. And I think some of the work that we've been doing with Cloudflare around, web bot auth or signed agents, the internet was kind of built for, humans to browse, and now there's more and more bots or agents browsing the web. How do you have a good bot or a bad bot, and how do you help identify this is a good bot acting on behalf of an individual? I think what we've seen in the past in the web scraping world was that there were individuals who were building applications that took many actions, took unfair resources. They were booking 1,000 tables or ordering 1,000 Taylor Swift tickets, and that was the bad bots that have existed online for now. But now more and more, there are good bots that are acting on behalf of one user or one human being. And that's kind of where we think about how can we enable the tasks that I can ask my browser, I should be able to ask my agent, and I should be able to have my agent represent me. And that means solving authentication problems, that means solving access problems, and really helping agents have the same trust that people have when they're doing these good intents online.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk a little bit more about the Cloudflare partnership. Tell us exactly what you guys announced, how it works, and what we can expect for our agents to be able to interact with it.
Yeah, so this is still pretty early, right? Like one of the main problems of agents online is the fact that, hey, how do I know that this agent's acting on behalf of Paul? There's no way for you to really say that. Now, authentication is the first way. If an agent can log in as you, then it can say, I'm acting with Paul's best intent. And authentication is one big way to say this agent is acting on behalf of Paul. But what if the agent is acting in a non-authenticated way? What if the agent's going to a website that's publicly available? Well, those websites want to make sure that Paul is only using the website for his use cases. Paul isn't trying to download your entire website's information. That way they can kind of delineate. I think a
Yeah.
website will be okay if Paul is just looking up a recipe. The website probably won't be
Right.
okay if Paul is scraping every recipe on the website to train a large language model, right?
Right. Because
So
most websites see agents as just scrapers, spiders, and a lot of them just don't allow it.
Exactly. It's an unfair economic, divide. And I think this is kind of unfortunately due to a lot of the ways that these models have been trained. It's been taking content unfairly. We just saw the recent Anthropic settlement where they had to, pay all these authors for writing books because they never got their permission. Now, I think an author would have been very okay if an agent had cited a page in their book, and they knew that agent was acting on behalf of Paul because Paul's doing a researching report. But I think an author would be less okay if a large language model company is grabbing all of their content and stuffing it into a model. So it needs to be delineations. Are you a company that's interacting with the website for some intent that's unclear? Or are you an individual that's using your agent as an extension of you to browse the web? That's where I think new standards and paradigms like web bot auth or signed agents will allow people to say, hey, listen, I want to say I'm Paul. This is my intent. I want to go book a hotel on Airbnb. And here's where my agent is going to go do it for me. And this is just one way outside of authentication that will allow agents in an opt-in way to say, I'm acting on behalf of the individual.
And so at that point, let's say I'm giving authorization to an agent to go browse a web on my behalf. The website's owner gets that authentication. How does that prevent the bot from actually going and scraping everything? Or is it just I'm putting my signature on it and thus I am responsible for it? Maybe there's a list that gets built where if I do bad behaviors with my agent, it's just, okay, well, now you can't use that signature on my website anymore. Is that how it works?
Yeah, it's a good example. Well, I think first of all, there's parties in between all of this, right? There's browser-based, and we're going to help our customers implement web auth and signed agents and make it really easy for them because it is kind of complex to do, this cryptographic signature and managing the signatures for your downstream users. That's where we want to help our customers. But then, of course, one of the primary things that agents that browse the web run into is CAPTCHAs. And what I've been really excited about from the Cloudflare team is that they do believe that humans should be able to let their agent browse the web. But they also believe that they need a way to say, this is one individual, one human. And WebBot Auth and Signed Agents is an opt-in way where you can say, hey, I'm here. You can follow me around on the web. You can see where I'm going to with my agent. And you can see that I'm actually being a good citizen of the internet. So I kind of describe it as like TSA pre-check. You're able to say, hey, I'm gonna opt in. I'm gonna say this is my agent. And by doing that, it's going to enable property owners of websites actually be able to say, it looks like they're just accessing that one page and they only did this once. That's probably okay to let them through. But it's much more challenging if you have many, many cryptographic signatures that are being signed. You're not going to be able to generate those effectively. And in longer term, for people who do have high volume use cases, website owners may be able to allow them based on the intent or the origin that they have. If you're a very large company, maybe like an Airbnb, and you are like, hey, I want to help people find more nearby restaurants, maybe Google Maps will be more okay with that as opposed to somebody who's building a Google Maps competitor scraping that internet. So in the end, it's all about specifying intent, specifying identity. So website owners have a little bit more clarity outside of the traditional ways to identify browsing, which is IP addresses and user agents, which are just not sufficient for actually saying, this is me and you can trust me.
Is there going to be, or is there already a monetization component to this? So let's say I have a high volume use case and I'm fine with it. I want to pay the website the publisher says, yeah, actually, we want to allow that, obviously within reason. Is there a monetization component to it?
Yeah, not from our perspective. We don't plan to monetize WebBot authors or sign agents at BrowserBase. I think other website providers or certain types of content providers, where their model is advertising driven, have been talking about ways to some sort of microtransaction for payments for agents. I'm not sure how I feel about that. I think in the end, if you need advertising driven revenue, you're going to need to think about how you get human eyeballs in front of it, not agent eyeballs. But longer
Right.
term, I think that's on the content provider to really decide how they need to monetize their website if it's advertising driven in the long term. And there's going to be many different ways that agents are going to be able to do, or content providers can do that. I don't know how the future is going to turn out though.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I do see a future in which I have an agent browsing on my behalf, have synthesizing information, bringing it back to me. And you're right. There is this likely decrease of human eyeballs going to publisher websites, and thus the CPMS are not going to be there. And so I think I would like a future in which I can pay a publisher directly for that. Being a content creator myself, being on the other side of it, if somebody doesn't want to actually come to the site, read it themselves, see the advertising, that's fine. Just that's what memberships are for example, already. So there's a lot of examples of that. I wouldn't mind. I want to. So there was a little bit of negative reception when you guys first announced this. Can you explain what that negative reception was, and then what your kind of counter argument to that is?
Yeah, well, Gary Tan called us the axis of evil, browser-based in Cloudflare, which I thought was a bit of a hot take from us browser-based who've technically been on the other side of this, trying to help agents browse the web, trying to find a way to partner. And I think there's been a lot of comments around like, hey, how should agents browse the web? Is this good or bad? And we've been trying to find a way forward. And hopefully by working across the other side from going to, hey, browser-based may need to solve CAPTCHA. So how do we partner with the CAPTCHA providers to actually find a way that's more workable that both sides can agree to? Now, on the idea of WebBot auth, I feel this personally. I come from a cybersecurity and privacy background. That's what I did at Twilio. I did identity and authentication management. It is kind of concerning, like, well, okay, if everyone knows where you're browsing the web, doesn't that violate your privacy? I think that's why it's important that it's opt-in. This is going to be pre-check. It's going to allow you to get past some of the guardrails that may be in the way to let your agent browse online, but it shouldn't be the default way. And I really think that WebBot auth, it's important to know it's for bots. It's not for people. And I'm very against, signed agents or signed identities for people browsing the web. It's very important that people are allowed to maintain their anonymity. And we shouldn't force everybody in the world to use, signatures for their browsers. But it may make more sense for automated use cases because, once again, this is the new world bolting onto the old internet, and that means we need new systems to change the internet for agents browsing.
Can you just explain what it means by potentially violating privacy, or like what piece gets publicized when you're using WebBot auth?
Well, I think the difference here is that, instead of tracking the IP address, now most of us, we have IP addresses and sometimes those are static and dynamic. Previously, you could always say, well, this IP address went to every single page. But in the world of much more limited IPv4 access, IP addresses are changing all the time. So you can no longer use an IP address and the user agent, which describes the type of device we're browsing on, as a way to identify people traveling to your website. Maybe, Matt, 10 years ago, I can know that this is your IP and this is your user agent, and I can see what pages you're accessing so I could better moderate. Hey, are you using this website too much? Are you taking down my servers because you're scraping 10,000 pages?
Yeah.
Now there's a lot of stuff that's changed to make that more challenging. So with WebBot auth, you can optionally add an additional header to your browsing that says, hey, here's a way that you can see that I signed this request. It came from me. And that way you can better know that I'm trying to show you, here's exactly what I'm taking access on, and here's why you may want to let me in. And once again, if that turns into everybody on the web needs to sign their requests, I think that's kind of concerning. I don't think that should be the future. But I do think for certain agents browsing the web, it's much better to say, this is my agent, this is what it's doing, instead of having to try and guess that this agent belongs to Matt longer term.
Okay, yeah, thanks for that clarification. I want to talk about reliability of web browsing agents. Obviously, it's a super fascinating thing to watch, but they still fail often. What is browser-based doing currently to improve the kind of frontier of browsing agents?
Yeah, that's a great question. I saw a good Dwarkesh podcast recently where he talked about computer use and how he thinks that computer use is still early. And there's a lot of stuff in large language models that are changing for agents right now. The long context reasoning, a lot of web actions take many, many steps. And
Yeah.
we do need to improve model capabilities to make more use cases possible. With us, the way that we've tried to make this better is Stagehand. The way we work with Stagehand, it is open source. You can look at the code. We really try and think about how can we take the latest and greatest of models and improve the context of the page and do some context engineering so they're able to more effectively and reliably navigate the web. So for us, that might mean instead of taking the full HTML of the page and handing that to a model and saying, what do? We take the accessibility tree, which is a subset of the page that actually kind of lays out the page elements in a more readable way that works better for models. So on our side, we're constantly looking at research and papers publishing and incorporating those insights into Stagehand. So our customers don't have to keep changing their web agents as new releases are updated. They can just keep using Stagehand and we're going to work in the best practices for them. And that coupled with, new model releases, and we're really lucky at BrowserBase, we maintain a set of evals for agents that want to browse the web or evals for models that are browsing the web.
Do you publish those evals?
We do. Stagehand.dev/evals if you want to check them
Nice.
out.
Alex, can you throw that in the chat, please?
Please. That shows you exactly what models we think are doing best on web tasks, which ones are the fastest, which ones are more expensive. And of course, there's often a trade-off, right? Maybe the fastest one is a little bit more or less expensive. So we want to help our customers make the best choice. I want to take I've tried to take a vacation before, and every time I take a vacation, a new model drops. So it's
welcome to my world, Paul.
AI is changing all the time, and for us, we really want to help our customers build something that can adapt as models get better. On our side, we also do work directly with some of the labs, and we have early access to some models, and we can see what's working and what's not working. And what I can say is I'm really optimistic about model capabilities over the next 6 months. It really does seem like computer use is going to get a lot better. It seems like long context reasoning is getting a lot better. And people are paying a lot more attention to how they can help build models that can navigate the web effectively.
Okay, let's continue on Stagehand. So Stagehand is really a combination of deterministic and non-deterministic code. Explain how you think about that balance and what you're seeing, and is it kind of trending in one direction? And yeah, just tell us a little bit about that balance there.
Yeah, absolutely. So Stagehand kind of came with this idea about a year and a half ago, which was that it was really built to be a better version of Playwright, Puppeteer, and Selenium. In the old world, you'd have to write 100 scripts to automate 100 websites. With Stagehand, you can write one script that can automate any website. And that kind of the key feature there is instead of building a full-on agent where you give it a prompt and it tries to discover its own path, you give it some atomic steps that have fuzziness because these steps are described as natural language.
What's an example?
Yeah, so an example could be like, okay, I want to go to the cookie store and buy cookies. Now you may offer an agent say, go to the cookie store and buy cookies. Cookies is probably a bad term because that's a recipe. We'll call them brownies. Go to the brownie store and buy brownies, right? And you have this prompt and buy brownies. They must be chocolate. They must have this price. Ship it to this address. That's a lot of context that an agent has to remember as it goes through all these steps. If you know that you need to go to this brownie store website, find the chocolate brownie, add to cart, and then ship to this address, you can instead break that up into 4 different prompts that then happen step by step sequentially. And if for some reason they're out of the chocolate brownie, it's going to fail at that step and you won't proceed forward. So it's that blend of deterministic and non-deterministic. I think as we've seen with agents, if you build agents in production, the abstraction layer of your tool calls is very important for effectiveness. I've been playing with Claude Code a lot recently, and I've realized that as I build tools, the right tool interface is important for building really effective agents. Yeah. So for Stagehand, the input to our tool calls, of which there are 3, act, extract, and observe, those are natural language. So it works really well in an agent paradigm where you may have a reasoning model who's actually generating the sub Stagehand commands, which are like sub-agents, and those sub-agents or those prompts are then using a kind of more defined context to take that official step. So your reasoning part of the equation has much more limited context. It's shooting off these steps. And then, the actual browsing task can be constrained just to that individual action. It's a little heavy on context engineering here. I definitely recommend my friend Dexter's talk on context engineering for advanced engineers. It's a really good talk about how you can build agents that effectively use context and sub-agents to get a lot more done.
And so, Paul, you mentioned you're working with some of the frontier labs. You get early access. What, if you can share, which frontier lab has, or which model is performing best within the browser-based ecosystem?
Well, I can't pick a favorite child, right? I think each model, each lab is doing a lot of interesting research. I will say, if you look at our published evals right now, Gemini 2.5 Pro really has done a lot of good stuff, specifically
Is
in the
that
state.
because of the context window?
It's
It's a
not
million
necessarily because of
tokens?
the context window, actually.
Okay.
But if you look at our evals, it is performing better on our evals of our web tasks.
Okay.
And different models are better or worse. I don't think it's to say one model is better or worse. In the end, actually, what's important, yeah, this is perfect to
Thanks,
pull it up.
Alex.
In the end, the model you choose should be the right model for your use case. The model you use for interacting with Craigslist, a very simple website, might be much different from the model you use for interacting with Airbnb.com, right? So for our customers, it's something to think about. Like, you should always build your own evals. When you're building something, even with Stagehand where we publish evals, it's going to really depend on the use case that you're working on. And you might actually find that a model works really well for you for a certain use case that might not score as high on our general evals that try and capture everything. And I really want to underscore that point for a lot of the AI engineers listening. It's easy to look at benchmarks and say, this is the best benchmark, I should use that model. That should be a starting point, but you should always be trying to refine and choose right models. That's how with Stagehand, we make it work with every model. It's model agnostic, so you can plug in and use the model that works best for your use case.
So, for the most accurate models graph that we're seeing here, can you explain what the 90% means?
So the 90% means that it passed all of the evals that we built. Now, we don't run it on WebBench or any of these other popular, web agent eval frameworks. We are doing more work to compare Stagehand agent performance with certain models and certain frameworks. And I will say that it depends on the infrastructure you're running this on too. Browser infrastructure is notoriously unreliable. There's all these things that can happen when you run many, many browsers in production. And this is all running on browser-based infrastructure. So if you're running these models on a web agent on your own browser infrastructure or some other provider, you might get different results because maybe for some reason that page doesn't work well when it's running on a browser on a server environment, right? So it is important to think about, it's not just the model's performance, but it's also paired with really reliable infrastructure to get the best results. But we have a set of published open source evals that we run this on. You can go look at them. And the accuracy is not just like, did it complete the task, but did it complete each step in the task effectively, given the prompt that we don't change across any of the models.
So it's at, Gemini 2.5 Pro sitting at the top of the leaderboard at 90%. What is number two there? Claude something?
I think
Claude
it's
Opus
this four.
4.1.
Yeah.
90% seems close to saturation, or is that like last 10% really like 90% of the quality, or do you need to increase the difficulty of the benchmarks?
Well, I think we certainly should increase the difficulty more and more. It's something that we're investing in right now, is making evals really great. What's cool about Stagehand, it's open source. You can see what the team is working on. You can see the pull requests are opening. And if you look at the pull requests recently, there's been a lot of work on evals and eval CLIs to make more comprehensive evals possible. I will say that a lot of our evals are more focused on different types of interaction elements. So we have like 4 or 5 different date pickers or drop downs for scheduling. You won't believe how many ways people have built ways to pick a date on a website. There's infinite permutations
Yeah.
of the date picker. How does each model interact with every single date picker? That's an important thing to think about. And that's really much more what we test. We aren't testing reasoning as much. We're really testing ability to parse HTML, CSS, and make the right choice of what item to click on given a certain prompt.
So obviously, Paul, quality is incredibly important, but there's two other things to think about. There's speed and cost as well. And Alex, can you scroll down a little bit? We can see some of the costs here. Assuming you think quality is still the number one thing to work on, what would be number two for you? Is it speed or is it cost?
I think if you asked, all of our customers, which now we have a few thousand, they'd all have different answers, but everyone would agree accuracy is number one. You can't really optimize for cost or speed afterwards. I think some customers, they're doing really low volume but high value tasks, so they really care about speed. Some of our customers are doing like high volume but maybe lower value tasks, so they care about cost, right? So it does depend on the type of workflow you're building. I think I personally care about speed at browser base. I like things to be as fast and snappy as possible. But I think for our customers, it really does depend on their use case of what they're trying to optimize for.
Yeah, I mean, assuming quality stays where it is or increases, speed just seems like the complete unlock to me. I want things to get done quickly. I'm a speed maxi, and that's not just specifically for browser use. That is for LLMs in general. I think I'm actually in the minority on that. in a lot of examples, I'll take speed over quality. And again, I think I'm in the minority on that. So it's good to hear your take, though. Okay, but so you're built on top of you're integrating all these different models from frontier providers. Do you feel any partner tension with them? Do you feel any platform risk using their models, given we don't know exactly where they're going to be building? OpenAI could build something, Anthropic could build something. How do you think about that strategic risk?
Yeah, for us, we don't build on any of the models really. We're model agnostic, and our customers actually bring the models to browser base. We're purely browser infrastructure, and everything I build is to enable my customers to use these models more effectively. And I think by being Switzerland, by being outside of the labs, we help our customers have a lot of choice. You can switch models really, really easily in stagehand, and I think that's challenging for the labs where they want you to build everything deeply embedded into their ecosystem.
Yeah.
But we all know that these labs are hyper competitive. They're constantly trying to outperform each other. If you're going to build the latest and greatest AI agent, you don't want to have infrastructure lock in to one lab provider if you're going to switch between multiple ones. And I think Stagehand is really that framework to help you switch and build more robust, resilient agents. In terms of tension, I mean, this is a really, really big market. I don't really worry about competitors under 100 million in revenue. We do not have 100 million in revenue yet. I think for us to go really realize the full potential of browser base, we need model capabilities to get better. We need more people to build amazing things with browser base, hopefully. And we need the world to move forward and make it easier for agents to access and browse the web. And I think those are the biggest hurdles that we're focused on. I'm not as worried as any sort of lab, building browser base, because once again, we think even in the world of open source models where you aren't going to have any sort of integrated offerings, browser base is still a really good choice. So for us, not something that's top of mind for me, but all in all, I'm more focused on helping our customers build great stuff. And I think we still have a lot more building to do. Software 3.0 is here. We need to rewrite the whole internet and all of the software to be agent first. And the builders, like the people watching your show right now, are the ones that are going to be driving that forward. So I'm excited to see what they build.
And do you think the best underlying model for browser use cases, browser use cases, is going to be a large generalized model, or do you think it's going to be something more fine-tuned for the specific task of browsing the web?
I think it's not one size fits all, right? I know it's like kind of like a hard answer, but that is the truth. It's like what you'll probably has, and what I've said in a couple of talks is like, I think you really want to have a reasoning agent or a reasoning model that's actually taking a lot of context. It might even be using other tools. It might need to go into your email to get a 2FA code to do logging in. It needs to be able to manage the context in the tool calls. And then it's going to dispatch tool calls to the browser tool, which could be Stagehand or browser base, and then be able to go out and do web-based browsing. And actually, what might be even smarter is like based on the type of web page, maybe we'll even pick the right model to use based on the complexity of that web page. So in my mind, I really think about how do you use the model that's best for each part of the system you're building. You shouldn't just be using one model anymore. I think one size fits all models are going to be pretty hard to pull off. Instead, you should use the best model for the best tool call. And if your tool call does need a model to do some sort of agentic tool action, you want to make sure the model you're using for that tool call is really good at its job.
Okay, so not exactly related to browser base, but I want to ask you, what do you think of all these new browsers coming, Perplexity's Comet, and all of these other new browsers coming? What do you think about the browser wars, and what browser are you using?
Yes. And I want to make sure I remind people, we did not get acquired by Atlassian. We're not the browser company. We're browser based. And we also don't build a browser. We use Chrome. Our browsers are running Chromium. So we are not a player in the browser war. We are an infrastructure company. Important to just remind that I got a couple text messages congratulating me on the acquisition. So I want to clear
acquired by Jira.
Yes, we are not. We're not get acquired by Jira. We are the browser-based company. We build infrastructure. I use Chrome. I think about the browser wars as being really exciting and interesting to see innovation there. But I'll also add that it's going to be very, very hard for new browsers to take flight. And I think we did see that with the browser company. It's very hard to get people to change their browsers. My parents will never switch off of the browser they have. My grandfather still uses Internet Explorer, right? I don't think that the browser wars are going to play out as fast as we think, but I do think they're really rethinking and challenging the way we think about how we use the internet, and whether that agent lives within our browser on our desktop or in a background agent as part of software. For me, I actually kind of view the solution of like, well, we should just have our browser on our laptops do the task for us as being a little reductive. I'd rather have software where I click a button and that button goes out, dispatches a background agent, and that does that work for me. And that's really kind of what we're building for at Browser Base. Finally, I'll add, of the browser wars, I think people have really slept on Project Mariner from Google. I mean, we saw
Yeah.
this like almost a year ago now. I think they're waiting and ready to go. I think we'll see agentic browsing native to Chrome at some point in the future, and that's really going to change things quite a bit.
Yeah, I mean, the UI has to change drastically for this new interaction paradigm, right? It doesn't feel like it's gonna look like the browser we see
Hmm.
today. It feels like it's just gonna be completely different.
Yeah,
But
the
there does
UI
seem to
for
be
browsers. Yeah. I think it won't change. I think once again, there's like a lot of fun browsing that's happening. Like I actually enjoy when I want to go buy a new pair of shoes. I like looking at the shoes. I like going to the website. I like enjoyable browsing experiences.
Mm,
What I don't enjoy is going to the California Secretary of State website and getting a statement of information so I can get new insurance
yeah,
for the
yeah,
office
yeah.
we're moving into, right? So I want to get rid of the boring browsing, and I think a lot of that will be dispatched to a background agent more and more. And you might be dispatching that from your browser, or maybe from your AI client that you use, your chat app du jour, or maybe from an app on your phone, a personal assistant app that you use. I think there's going to be many ways that we interact with AI, and those ways might be native to the applications we're using now. They might be new applications, but all of them are going to need a browser in some capacity because it is the bridge to the legacy internet that's not going to change.
All right, Paul, I wanna thank you so much for joining us. This has been awesome. Congratulations on your success. I love that you're building for builders, so thanks again for joining us. Come back anytime.
Yeah, and if I could just throw it out there for the viewers, if you ever have any questions about this stuff, I always love to chat. My email is just paul@browserbase.com. Shoot me a message. I always look at these emails and I hope to respond.
Awesome.
So
Yeah,
thank
we'll
you.
drop that in the chat. We'll put it in the description as well. Paul, good to see you.
Thank you so much.
See ya. All right. So we have a few more news stories. Then we're going to bring on our next guest, Dylan Patel, and he is a founder and CEO of Semi Analysis. So first, Alex, if you can bring up our first story, Albania using AI for corruption control. Give us one sec. Peter Souza says, congrats on the acquisition, Peter. Funny. Nope, that is the wrong browser company. Okay. Albania appoints AI bot as minister to tackle corruption. Alex, can you zoom in slightly and then scroll down? I want to read the beginning of this. All right, that's good. A new minister in Albania charged to handle public procurement will be impervious to bribes, threats, or attempts to curry favor. Obviously, they have never heard of Pliny the Prompter. That is because Delia, as she is called, is an AI generated bot. So this is really interesting. I am all for using technology in government to make it more efficient, more cost effective. But to think that it's going to be impervious to maybe bribes, yes, threats, certainly, but like all AI is jailbreakable. And so there is this huge surface of risk that is now exposed. And so although you're taking a human out of the loop and now it's not impervious technically to bribes, it is going to be vulnerable to other attack vectors. But it's interesting. It's interesting to see. Let's see. Diella, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, is the first cabinet member who isn't physically present, but is virtually created by AI. And so, yeah, that's going to be super interesting to see. I'll follow it. I definitely am all for, as I mentioned, AI in government. We just have to be very, very cautious about how we actually implement it. Let's move on to Anthropic. All right. So Anthropic is bringing memory to teams at work. This is just a small announcement. Today, we're introducing memory to the Claude app, where Claude remembers you and your team's projects and preferences, eliminating the need to re-explain context and keeping complex work moving forward. This is super interesting. This is something we've talked a lot about on this channel, is the kind of delineation between work, personal, cross-work memory. We were literally just talking about this yesterday. When you develop a shorthand with AI and kind of your personal AI, it becomes much more efficient. It has much higher quality because it knows you, it knows what you like to see, it knows how you like to work. But then can you really bring that AI to your work? Because then all of a sudden you're dealing with IP issues. Anything you create at work is owned by your work. And then all of a sudden you think, okay, well, then I have to redevelop all of this memory, this shorthand with my work agent, which is different from my personal agent. And then there's all this kind of cognitive overhead for the human to remember what was developed with their personal agent versus what was developed for their work agent. Then if you leave work, what happens there? And so here's kind of another dimension to think of it on. If I'm developing a memory with an agent within the context of work, should that be shared with my colleague, my team, the organization as a whole? These are all very interesting questions. So let's read the article a little bit. Memory is fully optional with granular user controls that help you manage what Claude remembers. We're also introducing incognito chats that don't appear in your conversation history or saved to memory. And let's see, with memory, Claude focuses on learning your professional context and work patterns to maximize productivity. It remembers your team's processes, clients' needs, project details, and priorities. So it really does seem like there's probably a lot of nuance into what gets saved as this individual employee's memory versus the team's memory. So very, very interesting to think about. Let's move on to the next one. Dwarkesh had a great interview. One of the leading robotics researchers, co-founder of Physical Intelligence. So we apparently are getting humanoid robots much sooner than everybody thought. I actually think it's pretty far out. And when I say pretty far out, maybe 10 years. So we'll see. He thinks fully autonomous robots are much closer than people realize. When I pushed him on a prediction, he said 5 years to robots that can autonomously run your household. We've already seen Figure Robotics, the Figure O2 robot, be able to load dishes, fold laundry. Obviously, it's very slow and still needs a little bit of help here and there, but the progress is tremendous. I just don't know. 5 years, maybe it's possible that in 5 years it can do it, but it's certainly not going to be deployed to a majority of households within 5 years. By the way, drop a comment in chat if you would have a humanoid robot in your household. I'll give you my answer in a minute. So this is a big game changer in his view. We finally have LLMs with common sense. That was really the unlock for humanoid robots and prior knowledge that we can scaffold the robots around. I want to give a minute for everybody to drop their thoughts. Would you have a humanoid robot in your household? I'll say this, my wife would not. She would not. Now, whether I would, I will share in a minute. Can you scroll down, Alex, a little bit? Can you share the video? There was like a little bit of video of the actual robot doing something. I just want to see that bit.
Robotics Foundation's model,
reward model.
Intelligence says that right now.
So,
all right.
I think those
so
built.
We have some. I would for sure. Heather's retirement shenanigans. Lalo, yeah, why not? I'm home alone all day anyways. Dot, I wouldn't. Fragrant Wind, I would. So the answer is yes, I definitely would. I was actually in the process of acquiring one of those Chinese humanoid robots. Gosh, I'm forgetting the name right now. They just filed to go IPO. Anyways, I definitely would. I definitely want a robot doing the dishes. I don't mind doing the laundry as much, but the dishes I hate so much. And so, yes, I would absolutely have a humanoid robot. All right, last story before we bring our next guest on. Higgsfield raises $50 million. So Higgsfield raises $50 million and is launching Higgsfield Ventures. They do text to video. They do a lot of creative AI. Unitree, thank you, Fragrant Wind. Unitree is the robotics company that I was attempting to acquire a robot from. Thank you, Juice Brother, as well. So yeah, congratulations, Higgsfield. Raised a bunch of money. Again, any additional competition, I love. This is for investing in other AI companies. And with that, let's bring on our next guest, Dylan Patel, CEO and founder of Semi Analysis. Okay. Dylan is not quite here yet. Apologies. Okay. Give me 1 minute. Okay, let's move on to the next stories. Give us a sec, folks. All right. Give us 1 more minute. We're just pulling up some stories. Not Dylan Curious dot. Okay, drop some comments in chat if there are stories you want me to talk about right now. This is Dylan Patel from Semi Analysis. Yeah, so drop some comments in chat. Any stories you want me to talk about? Let me know. We'll cover them. My question, please. At Esezen77, let me look for your question. Hey, Matthew, do you think we're at the peak of what we can do with LLMs? There won't be another DeepSeek moment. No, I do not think we're at the peak. Every time we think we're at the peak, we see something new. I think what is actually happening is we're getting used to things, and things aren't shocking us as much, but the rate of progress is still tremendous. So no, I don't know if we're necessarily going to have a worldwide shocking news story like DeepSeek, where the markets react negative 20% for Nvidia, stuff like that. But we are going to have incredible innovations coming. I still think the rate of innovation is accelerating. It just may seem a little bit less obvious to us as we just get more, used to things that we're seeing. What do I think about the new Quen Next? I haven't tried it. I think, Alex, can you pull up the Quen Next story? We'll go back to that for a second. So we covered it earlier in the show. Hypersonic monkey brains, not even close to the peak. No, I mean, there is no peak, right? I mean, of course, there's going to be ups and downs like always, but no, we're like, I am a full, I guess, accelerationist. I think that we are so fortunate to live in the time that we're in right now. Okay, so Quen Next ADB. And Alibaba, so what do I think of it? Look, it's an open weights hybrid model. It is small to run. So whenever you have a model that is, let's say, relatively large, but the active parameters are very small, it actually runs very well on MLX, which is Apple's, I guess, inference library. And I'm very excited about that. I hope we can use it. Max Molly. Okay, we're actually going to bring on Yohe in 1 minute. Thanks for jumping on early, Yohe. I appreciate that. So what do I think? Max Molly says, what do I think about Seed Dream 4.0? We've been testing it internally. I have not personally tested it yet, but my team has. And I think it's great. It looks great from the tests that we've seen. I mean, it looks comparable to Nano Banana. I don't know about the consistency yet. That's really what stands out about Nano Banana. And I'm really excited to test it. All right, with that, Yohe, so gracious to come on early. We're going to bring on Yohe Nakajima, general partner, Untapped Capital. Yohe, good to see you, buddy.
Good to see you too.
Thank you for being flexible. I appreciate it.
Oh, no problem. I know how these things are.
Yeah. All right. So, Yohe, tell us what is Untapped Capital? What are you investing in? What do you look for?
Untapped Capital is an early stage venture firm. We invest at the pre-seed stage, usually, inception stage, before people know about them. I consider myself a generalist, but I say that I'm a generalist that acts like a specialist at any given moment. So I tend to go deep on subjects that interest me and look for investments in that area. And I jump around between various interests. Of course, recently it has been AI has been my focus.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think what I know you most for is you are on the cutting edge of testing all of these things. And so what are you playing with lately? What are you most interested in? What are you seeing companies build that you're most interested in investing in? And then what are you using personally?
Man, that's like 4 very different questions. What am I enjoying? I've been personally enjoying a lot of the recent video models. I mean, they've gotten so good in terms of like being able to generate the audio and video at the same time. So this weekend I was playing with Runway and was playing around with building a little ad, and I was really impressed with what I was able to do. I was also playing with doing image to video with my kids, where we were setting up our toys and taking pictures and turning those into videos. We actually have one where we like did a whole bunch of scenes with like a narrative, and we turned all of them into videos and clipped them together. And it was just like playing with toys, but just like snapping pictures and turning it into video. So that was really fun.
And what are you using?
Runway is what I use for the ads. For the text to video, I found that Grok is really fast. So I've been using Grok. If you just like take a picture, it'll just like turn it into video the moment you do it.
Okay. And have you been using Nano Banana?
So I thought I was using Nano Banana at one point when I was using Gemini, but I think Nano Banana is just image, right? And I think image to video is actually VO3.
Yeah. It's funny though, because I've been seeing a lot of people with workflows that say, oh, I use Nano Banana to kind of generate this one frame or different frames in the scenes. And then they use some kind of image to video, other tool.
Yeah. With the kids, I'm not generating images, right? Because we're setting up the toys and we're taking the picture, which is the image. For the ad I made, I actually ended up using ChatGPT just because I'm so used to it. But so I guess I haven't played with Nano Banana, but VO3 is great.
Okay.
And then on the building side, I've been playing with a new UX form, which I've been meaning to open source at some time. I'm happy to share that as well. On the investing side, I mean, the hot talk is like RL environments and stuff, but anything that makes agents work better is
Didn't I just see a tweet about how RL environments are somebody was pretty bearish on it? Oh, I forgot.
There's a lot of opinions.
What is an RL environment? Can you explain what that means?
So I might not actually be the best person to explain exactly technically, because RL environment. So just quick context is like I'm much more on the orchestration side of things, right? Give me a model, I can make it, I'm good at making it work better by like figuring out how to orchestrate it with code. RL kind of gets a little bit more into the model building side, which is candidly not my strength. So I'm probably not the best person to answer it in the most factual way, but effectively it's an environment where you can either use models or agents to try a whole bunch of things, so you can track what's working well, what's not working well, kind of reward mechanisms baked in, so that then you can take that data on when it's working well to improve either the model or usually improving the model. Recently, we've heard discussions about kind of agentic RL environments, which is more around tracking. So I guess to step back, right? Initially, when we were, GPT-3 was text completion. So it was like, give it the beginning of a sentence, it'll complete it. If you ask a question, the follow-up would be a text. And then we moved into conversational AI, right? When ChatGPT blew up, where we were structuring the data we send into LLMs as conversations, which is if the user says this, then the assistant should say this. But now we're running a lot more agents where the agents are kind of looping through themselves and they're deciding to use a tool, thinking if the tool outputted the correct thing, and then deciding if it needs to do something else. So that's actually not a conversation, right? That's more of a decision-making flow. And so with these RL environments, if you're doing it on chat, then it might be around, figuring out if the answer the AI gave is good, then you feed it back in. If it's not good, you don't feed it back in. On the agent side, similar, but it decides to use the tool. If it's the right tool, good reward, you feed that back into the model. If it chooses the wrong tool, if it chooses the wrong reasoning, the next step, then you don't feed it back in. So the idea is creating an environment where you can run these AIs to improve itself.
Okay. All right. So I want to switch topics for a second. You're on the investing side.
Yep.
Are you seeing that companies, startups are needing a lot less capital? And do you think, or how close do you think we are to having a solo unicorn? So a single founder being able to get to $1 billion valuation?
I mean, it's hypothetically possible, but I feel like philosophically, I don't know if that makes sense to aim for, right? Like ideally, AI creates opportunity for everybody, but the reality is, yes, people who are able to take advantage of AI better are going to do more.
So what are you seeing as you're investing? How far are they able to get with less resources? Are companies going to be raising less capital?
Yes. Companies are able to do more with less resources. That is definitely true. We're seeing that, at Series A, I think the data was, I think the median revenue for Series A used to be like 1.5, even 2 or 3 years ago. Now it's up to, I think the Carta data, I think it was like 2.5 or something. So the average revenue for Series A has gone up. I think even at pre-seed as well, go back before AI, pre-product was sometimes fine, right? They're about to start building. Today, it's hard to invest in a pre-product company. Again, depends on the company, depends on the stage, but why aren't you at least prototyping it and like getting something going, right? So
unless your name is on a major research paper.
Exactly, right.
Then you get $1 billion. That's
a little bit different because then you're building models and but more for the typical founder, right? Like you can get further, you can build a prototype, you can start talking to customers, you can maybe even get them to pay a little bit. And I almost kind of expect that even at pre-seed to some extent, just because you are able to do that even as a solo person.
It does seem, I'm an angel investor, very small, but from like the deals I'm seeing, they're raising more money at much higher valuations, much earlier. Are you seeing the same thing? I mean, it's like almost, there's like the tale of two cities. You see folks raising a ton of money with very little traction. Then you see other companies that are also raising a ton of money, but have a ton of traction. What do you think that is?
There's always been a very wide bell curve in terms of like valuations and like stages, right? Like there's always been experienced founders who've had exits who are able to raise at high valuations. I think that bell curve has stretched out further, right? For a few reasons. One is we're seeing companies generate revenue increasingly faster. So the fastest companies are growing revenue incredibly fast.
Sorry, real quick, let me interrupt. So yeah, so 0 to 100 million, 10 million to 100 million ARR. And then I'm sure you saw the meme where they pull back the mask and it's a $120 million Anthropic bill. Is that what you're seeing also?
Well, yes, I am seeing some of that. Again, because I invest at pre-seed, that's not the data I'm exposed to on a day-to-day, right? If you talk to a Series A or Series B investor, that's the data they're ingesting as part of their job. For me, most of the companies I'm spending my time on aren't quite there yet. So I'd say that, yes, I'm seeing that, but not as deeply as some of the later stage investors.
All right. Sorry, continue in what you were saying.
But I mean, even if you look at that, though, the idea that VCs subsidize initial growth is not necessarily new, right?
Yeah.
Like Uber also, right? It's a great example of that. But I think the ability to take money, right? Take $2 and turn it into 1.8, throw that out there, is just so much faster, right? So you can grow much faster, and then also the world's significantly more interconnected today. I feel like news spreads much faster, and so you can get hyped much faster, and so some companies get a lot of attention, and I think there definitely is a huge first mover advantage. Doesn't mean that because you're the first mover, you're going to win, but there is a incredible benefit to getting that initial attention because distribution is so important today.
Yeah. I want to talk about the draw of Silicon Valley in the Bay Area. You're in Seattle,
I am.
but I've been visiting San Francisco a lot lately. I feel a strong pull to move there because of the energy. Do you think founders need to be in San Francisco if they are trying to start a kind of VC-backed, big-time AI company?
There is undoubtedly a benefit to being in San Francisco. Do I think you need to? No. But does it give you an advantage? I think so. And I guess in startups, every advantage does help. I do think it also does depend on the company you're building to some extent. And also your ability to visit and your ability to connect with people socially online. If you're building something like a dev tool, for example, dev infra, open source, I mean, there's huge benefits to being in SF. You see AI developers gathering and talking to each other on a daily basis multiple times. And so there's huge benefit. But if you're building a niche or vertically specific AI at the application layer, it might be less important because who you really want to connect to are the buyers. And the buyers aren't necessarily concentrated in San Francisco. Again, depends on the company, right? If you're more general, then yes. But if you're building a construction app, right? I don't think you necessarily need to be in San Francisco. So the requirement to be there varies based on what you're working on. And then also, I think some people are better at connecting with people in person. And so there's benefit to being there. But also some people are very just natively online. I think the younger you get, the more natively online you are. And I think there are ways to become part of the in crowd without being there physically in person today. A lot of people assume I'm in the Bay. I get people reaching out all the time saying, "Hey, I'm visiting the Bay. Can we meet up?"
Right.
And I think that's partially just due to my online presence. People assume I'm in the Bay because it seems like I'm connected to people there.
Even though in your Twitter bio, it definitely says Seattle.
I mean, I'm sure you get that too, right? Every once in a while, someone will reach out and say, I'm visiting the Bay because you've managed to get into the in crowd through your online activity, and there are founders who are able to do that. And if you're able to do that, then I think the requirement to be physically in SF is less.
So ever since I started this job of whatever it is I do, but I'm in AI. The second city that I have visited most often is Seattle, and you have a couple small companies there, Microsoft, Amazon. So what is the feeling there? How have you seen the energy change over the last couple of years with AI? Obviously Silicon Valley, San Francisco in particular, has seen this AI boom. Are you feeling the same thing in Seattle?
I am, definitely. I feel like Seattle's one of those ecosystems that like quickly got on the map, but like just kind of stayed at that same level for a long time, where it just didn't feel like as hot of an activity bed as like San Francisco, and then like LA and New York picked up a lot. And partially I think it's due to cultural reasons, right? People who moved to LA, San Francisco, New York, just historically, even before tech existed, people moved there to like do something, and that was it's like rooms, cities of dreams, right? Seattle culturally is much more spend time with family, right? Is kind of the culture which I love, and one of the reasons I live here. I think Seattle's always produced good companies. I'd say tends to be like less of the sexy kind, but more like fundamental good, just like straightforward businesses. Everything from real estate to e-commerce. Seattle's produced a lot of companies. With the recent AI boom, I feel like there has been a resurgence of energy, and largely because there's a lot of relevant talent locally in Seattle. Starting with AI2, which is a big research lab that's been around for a while, and then a lot of the cloud talent coming from Microsoft and Amazon. So I do feel like there's a lot of energy around AI that I haven't seen in Seattle before.
Is that entrepreneurial energy also there to the level or close to the level of what we see in Silicon Valley?
I think that would be hard to say. I think Silicon Valley is just completely unique, where like that's the industry that exists, and like if you throw a rock, you're probably gonna hit a founder, right? Like that's San Francisco.
Yeah. Okay, so you have kids. I want to talk about AI and children. I have two younger kids, 8 and 3, and I'm conflicted. Like I am online all day long. I use screens all day long. And then I tell my kids not to use screens. And then I think about, okay, but they have to learn artificial intelligence. Maybe there's going to be AI that is without a screen. I can just talk to it. I've been talking about voice AI. So give me like your general overview of how you think, first starting with your own children, how do you interact with them, or how do they interact with AI, I should say? And then what do you think the place of AI in schools is?
I think so. My kids are 8, 5, and 3. And like you, I spend all day on a computer. They see that, but again, like you, I'm telling them to constantly play outside, play with toys, do crafts. The way I've approached it, at least at this point, is really helping them just natively have a sense of what AI is capable of. Right? I'm not teaching them how to use it, but I just want them to be familiar with what it's capable of, so they feel like it's not a surprising thing that, and they're kind of tracking what the capabilities are. So I remember when Dolly came out, and I try to make it fun and playful and try to build curiosity. When Dolly initially came out, this was Dolly 2. We used to have these sessions called Dolly sessions, which we still do have, where we'd get together. Cool. I'd pull up Dolly, and me and each kid would throw out a theme, and then we'd throw it into Dolly, and Dolly would generate one image that combines those themes. It's kind of like the tell stories together, but we're leveraging AI to do that. We did the same thing with Suno, text to music, where you can throw out a genre or a theme, and you have a group of people, 3 kids and me, so we each throw out a theme, and then we just throw it into Suno. Some of it's a genre, and then it just like spits out music. And so doing things like that has been really fun. And then I mentioned recently it's been text to video. So through these, they are very familiar with what AI is capable of doing. They're coming to me and asking me, hey, can you generate a video of like a ninja surfing for me? But for now, I'm the intermediary, right? And I feel like that's a safe way to do it. As of now, I'm using mostly ChatGPT, which would technically, if I hand it to them, they could go off the rails and go into content I might not want them to.
Right. And then how about within school? What do you think schools should be using, or how do you think they should be using AI? Do you think it is kind of just, okay, more technology they don't need, or like how do you balance that?
What do you mean balancing?
Meaning, my kid's school already uses a lot of technology. And like more so than I'm comfortable with, which is again weird and contradictory because of how much I use technology. But I just want them to be kids. I want them to go play, get dirty, go outside, socialize. And so, but at the same time, again, I'm conflicted because I want them to learn these new tools.
Yeah.
And so, how do you think the school should be balancing those kind of two conflicting points?
That's a good question. I do feel like, learning how to use technology is an important part of education at this point, right? If you're learning math, if you're getting into algebra, you're starting to use a TI-83. I'm starting to use that technology and learn how to do things faster with the assistance of it. As you said, it just comes down to a balance. And I'm sure some schools are leaning in too much. Some schools don't do as much. I think our kids' school doesn't do as much pushing it. But I remember when I was in kindergarten, they had, like, this was a while back, in kindergarten, our school had one of those like old Macs, and they had the turtle program where you learn. And I remember I got really, really good at it. And I was like making crazy like circular weird orbital stars and like teaching other kids how to do it. So that was like a very, impactful tech experience for me growing up. So I'd love to make sure that my kids are going through some of those where they, where if a teacher teaches a kid how to use technology, it's actually not surprising, but the kid can easily surpass the teacher in their ability to use it. And that kind of experience, I think, creates a lot of confidence in kids. So I think those are important experiences for them to have.
Yeah, totally. You just reminded me of something, and maybe we're about the same age, but when I was in elementary school, they gave us the option of a typewriter or one of those boxy Macs, and I was like, who would ever choose a typewriter? And I started using it and I fell in love. I remember the moment, and it was just love at first sight. And me and technology have never separated since. And I would love to foster that kind of passion with my children. Maybe they'll be into technology, maybe they won't, but just exposing them to it is a good thing. Let's continue on this though. What do you think are the most important skills as AI continues to get better and better, continues to be able to do things better than humans at a lot of knowledge work. What skills are you teaching your children? What skills do you think are most important for the children in the future?
I think I think of it less as like a specific skill. I think of like I think to myself, I want them to like their generation is going to be AI native, right? That's how I think about it. And going back to something like Google gives me a little bit of a direction. If you go back 20 years, there were people that were, I remember people saying you're good at Google. Like, what does that mean, right? Today, everyone uses it.
Yeah.
No one's good at Google. But there was a period where some people are good at Google and some people were not good. And if I think about what made someone good at Google, it was a combination of knowing how to ask Google for things, right? But also knowing what Google might, like you could probably find on Google.
Yeah.
And if you asked a question that you could not find on Google, you'd be frustrated. But maybe you just assume that's not something that Google, like you would be able to find on Google. And that was really a large part of the difference. So when it comes to AI, I do think, having a curiosity around what it can do, seeing how it can help you, seeing how you can have fun with it. And if you just build that kind of into who you are, I think you'll be fine. It's kind of my simple approach to it.
Okay. A thing I think about a lot as I don't know if this is a skill, something that you can grow or not, but taste seems to be an incredibly important, I guess, quality that hopefully you can learn, but the ability to take all of this output from AI and craft an incredible experience for other humans seems to be something that's going to be incredibly valuable in the future. First, do you agree? And then how do you teach taste?
I mean, taste is something there's no one good type of taste, right? Like figuring out taste is I think it's to some extent like a self-exploration, right? Like figuring out who your identity is, which is ultimately like, all of our journey through life is just like figuring out who we are. And I think that's part of it, right? When you listen to a type of music and it resonates with you, you probably tend to draw toward that. And maybe if you create art, for example, it's probably going to be likely somewhat inspired by the music you like, the movies you like, the art you like, the friends you have. And so it is a little bit of just like figuring out, what feels good to you, what resonates with you, and building a sense of identity, I guess, to some extent. More practically speaking, though, right? If AI is incredibly good at coming up with new ideas, but if you ask AI to, right, I think of creative thinking as like a divergent thinking and convergent thinking. Divergent thinking, no ideas about idea, you come up with a whole bunch of ideas, and then convergent thinking is, you kind of narrow down on the idea you want to pursue, and it's kind of back and forth of that. AI is incredibly good at divergent thinking, coming up with more ideas, expanding the ideas that you might already have. But if you use AI too much for the convergent thinking, then you kind of have this like everyone's using the same AI, taste disappears. So I think if you're using AI, use AI to generate more ideas, but then you should be the one to decide which ideas to pursue. I think that's that's at least one way to look at a good way to use AI to continue building taste.
Yeah. Let's bring it back to your investing. We talked about RL environments. Are there other verticals that are under invested in right now that you think deserve a second look by angels and by builders even?
Yes. I mean, there's always a lot of opportunities. I mean, I did do an exercise where I tried to get AI to like map out all the industries, all the jobs to be done, and generate a whole bunch of startup ideas. But that produced some interesting results. But some I'm specifically interested in, right? And I'll just off the top of my head. On the consumer side, like Gen AI native IP to me is fascinating. And we're seeing some stuff there. But if you look at the history of technologies, right? Anytime there's a technological shift, if you look at gaming, for example, you see a new gaming company that's native to that. Zynga was, native to the social gaming. Supercell, I think, was native to mobile gaming. And even though incumbents did come in, we saw companies native to the new technology building IP around it. Similarly, I would assume that there's a Gen AI native gaming company, a Gen AI entertainment company that's generating IP. on top of that. And I think that's a space we're seeing some activity in, but I think there's still a lot of room and opportunity there.
Yeah, we spoke to somebody from Supercell last week who just started their kind of their AI lab in San Francisco, investing in, or sorry, not investing in, but essentially like an accelerator. They take no equity and they're looking for AI native game experiences. So I think Supercell,
That's cool.
other companies are thinking about it. Like, do you game? Do you play a lot of games?
I try not to. I have a really addictive personality, so when I start, I don't stop.
Okay, I'm sure you've thought about it. In what ways do you see in the kind of near term AI being incorporated into video games? What are you excited about?
One of the fun demos I saw. I feel like, with mobile, right? Like, if without actually trying mobile games, it would have been impossible to guess that like a game where you're just like flicking a bird is going to do so well, right? Angry Birds. But that was a very mobile
Yeah.
experience. It was native to the mobile experience where you're holding the device with one hand and using only your thumb to play. So I think similarly, we don't know exactly the right Gen AI native gaming, and I'm still looking for like interesting patterns. There's a lot of obvious ones that people are experimenting with. The most fun one I've played with so far was, I think, a hackathon project called Zera Nova, where you enter like some rooms, a couple of rooms that have a whole bunch of AIs in there, and you see an alert that says there's a human intruder. And your job is to talk to the AIs and get the secret code without being identified as the human by the AI, which I just thought was a very unique and creative approach to like building with AI. And I can imagine kind of iterations of that as well, right? Like I can imagine a metaverse game where you're walking around and you're trying to figure out who's AI versus who's actually human. And maybe the humans are trying to act like AI, and the AI is trying to act like a human.
It's like
But
almost a variant of Werewolf, if you're familiar with
yeah,
that game,
exactly.
like a
But like werewolf,
social
but like human
investigation
versus
game.
AI werewolf. I think there's some fun stuff there. If you looked at Genie 3, there's some new approaches to building generative games where it's kind of creating the game as you play it.
Yeah.
I don't know, like in my mind,
Seems like we're far out from that
yeah,
though.
it hasn't really quite translated into like the right gameplay for me, but I feel like there's a seed there. And I think if you took that technology and like layered on the right mechanic, that could be a really interesting new type of game.
Okay. Yohe, if people want to pitch you, if people want to learn more about you, where do they find you?
Twitter is where I'm most active. X. A lot of companies I've met, people are DMing me, replying to my threads, and my email is not that hard to find, especially with tools out there today. So some people cold email me, or asking for finding an intro path, just typical VC.
Cool. So Yohe, Untapped Capital, check it out. Yohe, thank you so much for joining. Thanks for being flexible.
No problem.
You're welcome back anytime. Much appreciated.
Awesome. Good to see you.
Good to see you. See ya.
All right.
All right, so we're gonna call the show there. Thanks to our guests, Paul Klene from BrowserBase, Yohe Nakajima from Untapped Capital. Dylan Patel joined a little bit late, so we're going to get him rescheduled, and he'll be on soon. And so can't wait for that. And thanks to all of you for watching. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter. You can follow me at Matthew Berman. Follow us on Forward Future at @forward_future_ as well. Check out our newsletter, forwardfuture.ai.